currently work with Freedom Mortgage as a senior director of marketing for the Salesforce Marketing Cloud team. Prior to that, I worked with a Salesforce partner. And prior to that, I worked with Salesforce itself and Salesforce services. So I'm really excited to be able to powwow with everyone.
As I bring over 20 years of multidisciplinary strategic marketing experience and working really closely with, let's say, C-levels, so oftentimes board members, as well as VCs and private equity firms. And a lot of that is to advise and implement what I call transformation and innovation initiatives as part of their customer-centric growth agenda. But because the focus of my work has really been within what I call the emerging and digital areas, which is also a passion of mine, I think that marketing practitioner domain expertise on the client and also the buy side, the demand and the supply and the publisher side has been what has also made me a little bit unique.
My name is Tigh Loughead, and I'm the founder of a MarTech agency called RentBoost. We're a certified Google Ads partner, registered Salesforce consulting partner, specializing in both sales and marketing cloud, but with a real focus on Pardot. Spent about 10 years on the customer side of Salesforce, both at a kind of rapid growth ad agency, and then in-house running a marketing team as well. For the past couple of years, I've been helping support a number of firms in tech, finance, professional services, a little bit healthcare, really with digital transformation, and largely to help build out their marketing infrastructure.
So I'm a tech guy who found his way into marketing. And about 10 years ago, I joined ExactTarget right in time for them to say, welcome to ExactTarget. Here's all your Salesforce details. So I was part of the sales team on as a solution consultant, really helping hundreds of customers get the most value out of the product from a marketing cloud perspective. And today,
nice to meet you guys. Yeah, so right now I'm a digital marketing director at the leading hotels of the world. It's a luxury hotel group. So we've been very impacted by COVID-19, starting out actually when it hit China. We could talk about that later every day. Seems like I'm talking about COVID-19, I'm sure we all do. Before that, I actually was a consultant for Magnet 360, or Platinum Partner, a marketing cloud functional lead. But before that, my journey has been pretty much digital marketing. So I've been on the agency side, I've been definitely on the client side, and now I'm back on the client side, but definitely with more of the marketing tech stack. So it's interesting how things have evolved, because I came out of the social media, probably being one of my first type jobs, doing a lot of social media work for SC Johnson for the Glade brand. And then it just kept evolving because the tools keep changing. Just like ExactTarget was acquired by Salesforce, so everything kept changing. And what I would like to share is probably how important being able to adapt with the climate that it feels that we're going in digital marketing and MarTech and whatever digital transformation. I'm not sure what buzzword to use.
You know, how have you really adapted your marketing strategy? And then, of course, did you have to modify your tech stack, you know, to deal with that, right? Like, are you more focused on branding, you know, so you're hoping people come back and they remember you, or is it, you know, tell us how, you know, how you're handling that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we've been great at is that we have a great marketing mix. So we don't try to do too many promotional like emails. We have a great balance already. That balance has definitely been more so like less promotional, more, but also inspiring. So we launched a coloring book because we know that you know, people are home with their children, and we wanted to make sure that we kind of are serving our hoteliers as well. So like, you know, we have all these amazing properties. And so we want to get people engaged and say, hey, you know, what's on your wish list, right? But then there's a balance with that. We still have our own loyalty program. So we have to have those transactional emails go out. I think the other part is, you know, beefing up our communications with our, you know, with our hoteliers, right? So we have customers and then we have the business side. And so that's been a focus of ours as well. And I think before it really impacted the US and when it hit our Italian market, I think we had to have a couple scenarios. And so I think scenarios for us is like what's going to play out, because at that point it was impacting our business. And so we had a scenario for each best case, worst case, and if it was going to be a widespread pandemic, which we were fearing that it was going to be. So I think one of the things is having like a really solid strategy.
This is the perfect time to test and learn, right? If you fail now, no worries. Like, we're in a pandemic, right? Like, this is a great opportunity to do new things, try new stuff out there, just see what happens. Do new channels, do new types of engagement. It's a perfect opportunity for brands to test and learn right now.
Yeah, because all of you guys are consultants and you work with a wide range of customers, although I'm sure you have niches. So yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, is like, are you guys seeing an impact as well? How are you advising your clients? What are some interesting things you're seeing them doing?
So email is up right now, which is crazy, right? Like, everyone's home. Everyone's actually like looking at their emails, so they have nothing else to do. So that, like, where it was like a dead channel 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's huge right now. Build a foundation that we can scale on, right? A lot of companies rush to just get like certain, like, campaigns out the door, and then their environment becomes a mess. So right now, like, I'm talking to all my customers about, like, take this opportunity to clean this up and let's experiment, try new things. Because if you fail now, no one's going to blame you.
Yeah, I have a slightly different probable opinion, but kind of in the same vein. I don't think success or failure is something for many businesses that can really be measured right now. I don't think it's really a good time to A/B test. But if anything, I've really been able to start the conversation that now is the perfect time to really double down on examining and leveraging your marketing infrastructure and how you're making sense of the data and what can potentially be optimized. Like, that's really what I'm hearing from my customers and what they really want to focus on now that the day-to-day of office politics and sales operation static is kind of a moot point.
Right. As a marketing practitioner, email was never dead for me. Let's just say technology, and here's the reason why. It's the same thing as SEO, SEM. Why is that? Because from a marketing perspective, that is essentially, you're always also looking, especially when it comes to acquisition strategies. If anyone is there looking at essentially gaining new prospects and new customers, CPA, cost per acquisition for email, SEO, SEM, right, is cheap. I don't need it. So, but what MarTech and AdTech has enabled is, and what today's time has enabled, is the ability to use analytics, both behavioral analytics as well as quantifiable analytics, to now really truly support our engagement, retention, loyalty, as well as a more personalized acquisition strategy. So I just wanted to put that out there.
It's like, today we can capture the moment better than ever before, right? Like, you have your customer, he or she is engaged with your brand. You can actually know that in real time and go back to them over email, over whatever channel you want, it's amazing what we can do today if you actually have your foundation in place.
You need the data. So there are a lot of companies who are collecting data and they're not looking at it, not trying to figure out, what it means. The meaning of these behaviors change over time.
Yep.
The meaning of these behaviors change given the current climate. It's really important to apply that psychological human factor to these numbers when you have so many of them. You have the SEO numbers. You have paralysis by over analysis of analytics. I don't know what to do because there's just so much stuff here. And that's why I'm so glad that Pia mentioned the idea of prioritization. You can't take care of everything all at once, but you have to prioritize what is truly important. And personalization is not just, hey, Pat, anymore. It's, hey, Pat, at 5 o'clock on Tuesdays, once a month. That's personalization these days.
Traditionally, people use metrics comparing things like, year over year, quarter to last quarter, but things are so different, and also the choices that are available are different. For example, people might choose to shop in person, now they can't. So that also changes things. So I'm just wondering, how are you choosing metrics that will work? Are you doing it on like a micro level, like week to week? Because you can't really use those. And then, by the way, as soon as you learn something, when things open up, that might change. So just wondering how you're attacking that.
I'll speak on this one part, and I think I hate to keep talking about COVID-19, but week over week, we started to notice a big dip. And because our inventory is online, we're spending ton of money on SEM. We have Performix as our vendor. So a lot of money's going out every week. And if, to be honest, if I don't have that return on ad spend, I get worried, I get concerned. So there's baseline numbers that you have and you're like, that's great. This is a stretch goal. This is us doing okay. But when those numbers start to decline steady week over week, that's why you have to almost be that granular and be over your data. I hate to be that, because if not, we would have had a lot of money going to Google. We would have not had any conversions. We would have had a lot of money just going out, into the abyss as far as direct response activities. And I mean, that's what I manage as well. And so, and it speaks to the importance of knowing your customers. So our customers, that's basically for acquisition. Email is there, it's a powerful channel. It costs us nothing, right? And so that was the shift. I realized that people weren't traveling before it started popping up on Google Trends because no one was clicking on our ads, or they were, and then they weren't purchasing. So I think sometimes you have to really watch your data. We also have Tableau. We have a lot of systems, but for me, just having, we have Google Analytics 360 and just kind of looking at that on a daily basis and not making a big deal out of something that could be an outlier. But when the outlier becomes like a weekly narrative, I mean, it's time to pivot,
So Blair, that goes back to like the point of like, just because you have the data, right, doesn't mean that you actually can use it, right? You actually, like, there's a whole lot of work that has to go into making that data actually usable for a marketer, for like a campaign, for whatever you want to do with it.
I totally agree, which is why, like, when in doubt, I know we've been talking a little bit about testing. I agree that this is a really good time to test, and you can decide, to test 1 or 2 or 3 different variables. And if you're testing content and you're not seeing any lift, then like Blair said, you have to shift your strategy.
Yeah.
But at least one of the great things as we consultants know about the marketing cloud is you have so many different ways that you can go into Email Studio and use the old school A/B test tool. It's still there. You could test with Journey Builder. You can test with Einstein. You could test by only targeting your highest segment of customers or your lowest segment of customers. You can even test, can you get people to resubscribe? Because everyone thinks that when someone unsubscribes from email, that canned spam says you can never mail them. No. That's not what CanSpam says. It says you cannot subscribe them to a regular commercial mailing, but you certainly can send them a one-time, hey, listen, we haven't heard from you in 6 months. Why don't you come on back? If they say no, don't opt them in. But these are the times, I think, where if your old numbers from an analytics perspective and your old strategy of sending the same email, every month isn't working, you either have to switch how you're doing it from a technical perspective or switch your actual strategy.
Because of the fact that we marketing professionals are constantly metrics driven, right? So it's the marketing metrics really regarding not just obviously the conversion rates and the acquisition rates and how are we applying all those, let's say, marketing metrics in order to really help inform our budget or our planning purposes and so on. Has that accelerated? So because of the current pandemic, those reports, those actionable insights, has that pace and the need for that accelerated so that you can be more agile to tailor your campaigns, your communications in a much more personalized way?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great point, Pia. Sometimes, you could be the champion of like, I'm just one part of the marketing department, right? Just my team, and we have a huge marketing department, but I think everyone is now grabbing for analytics. And I think we're pretty much an analytics driven team, but that kind of information that I think sometimes is not, when you're focused on return on ad spend and conversion rates, sometimes you don't really look at some of the softer detail or analytics, whether they're just open rates, yes, but just an engagement as far as how someone's clicking on different parts of the website, like what content is actually powerful for them. And if you have journeys, which ones are not performing that well, and just how can you, again, like enhance that experience. We're all over it now. I just can't say, I feel like in the past, other companies were not. And I'm glad I'm not there. I'm glad I'm at a company where analytics is very important for the company as a whole. But yeah, I've been that voice, and it's been like the same person. It's like, we need to invest in this technology. And everyone's like, how much? And they're like, no, you have marketing clout, you're okay. But yeah, it feels good to actually have everyone really invested.
I think the fundamental issue that a lot of companies really face is definitely, analytics overload, but it's really a lack of clarity about what the actual KPIs are that are relevant to your business, and really understanding. I know I'm in a digital chat room because basically what this is of digital marketers, and the most hackneyed cliche is the marketing funnel. But I still think there's a fundamental lack of understanding of the entire life cycle of your funnel, about what constitutes an actual goal, what constitutes a conversion, what constitutes a lead, and what constitutes a deal. All of those data points are quantifiable and replicable across any different industry. And if you have a clear dollar value amount associated to everything from Google Analytics to Salesforce, presented, succinctly, I think it becomes, depending on the latency of your sales cycle, a very simple question to ask: are sales really being impacted?
I agree with you in terms of what are those metrics that matter, but first and foremost, I think it really then speaks also to the need of alignment across all of the cross functions, right? And then to be able to, let's just say, have business translators to really align on ultimately what are those metrics that actually matter, and also what is the definition of that metric, right? And having consistency across that. from the very, very beginning, whether you're talking about what is a lead and what is a qualified lead and what then is the definition of an account or so. At least I know that whether it's Salesforce or whether it's Adobe, or let's just say, or if it's Oracle as well, they do push you through what I call a workflow that's their own. And so within that workflow, you then are, if let's say implementation is done correctly, so to speak, or to the vision that it could be, it does create an alignment of what those definitions should be, would be across the entire, let's say, marketing funnel. Which then becomes a organizational discussion across the marketing folks, the creative content folks, or let's just say the marketing services, outside agencies, as well as IT, marketing operations, data warehouse, product folks, technology folks, systems architectures. So it takes a village.
I will say that every engagement with your customer needs to have a reason. Like, why are you sending this message to the customer? Either you're trying to help him or her, you're trying to learn, trying to build a relationship between the brand and the customer. That, like, if you don't know why you want to send this message, don't send it.
I have my own theories, but I'm just really curious to hear your guys's. There's always such a gap between the declarative function of your CRM. And of course we have multiple tech stacks and there's tons of different things that we're playing in. My question goes back to those original foundational pieces of setup. Where do you feel like that gap is? We had a conversation with another group earlier this week that it's the training and it's the way that platforms are being sold and set up. And it's the core functionality and the responsibility of the platform creators to make sure that those things are set up in the right way. And then we heard another part of the team and say, well, you know, the fact that you can be flexible and customized, that's why you buy that platform. And then you get so far customized out that any new features don't work. And you have to reconfigure your whole org to get back to declarative to be able to take on those new feature sets. So my question for you, the panel, is where do you feel that gap has continuously happened with companies where they're finding themselves so far away from where the platform wants them to be so that they can take advantage of new releases and features?
You know, I really think Salesforce was not built with marketers in mind. And to connect digital marketing platforms for many years, all of my reporting, I was a marketer first and then you know, a Salesforce practitioner. You know, I kind of gradually migrated from building out reporting, you know, in Google Analytics, and became kind of a GA guru, Google Ads, ultimately started bringing things into Data Studio, and, you know, then working with various different other, you know, BI tools or data visualization tools. But I don't think that the systems were built really to align. So a lot of the work that we end up doing is retrofitting platforms that don't really speak to each other in the same language to pass data along, and that's kind of an uphill. It's still kind of an uphill battle.
It's interesting to see, and personally, you know, I obviously have a huge passion for Pardot, but I've worked in other platforms as well. But in the last 3 years, the quick changes that they've made towards the campaign object and the integration is where we needed to be 15 years ago. And so my analogy is all of my large B2B organizations right now that I'm having to rip and replace their CRMs. We're going in and we're completely reconfiguring their lead contact account opportunity and campaign objects.
Wow.
From scratch, completely. What's your business process? Let's get rid of the 150 pieces of garbage you don't use. Process alignment, flows, and going back to the days where everyone does this the same way, and here's your document, and we have steps in place to make sure that you do it that way. because we've gotten so far out of it. We've put everybody into kind of their own little cube and let them do what they want, but they're all using the same system. And you can have 12 different marketing departments, partner marketing, customer marketing, digital marketing, corporate branding, all doing different things with the same platform. My newer customers that are net new and they're bringing these things together, it's much more easy to scale them in an efficient manner than having to rip and replace. And when you talked about the difficult conversation, Alarra, it's very, very difficult to tell a company that, oh yeah, this, systems that you've had in place that you spent thousands of dollars and gone through how many consultants to tell you all the wrong ways, or at the time they were right and now they're not aligning, it just crushes them, and so it's like throw more Band-Aids on. Let's do more custom Apex. And it's I know, but it's ruining their ability to scale. Yeah. And the more Band-Aids that they put on, the farther and farther they get into these holes until you can finally, the clients that I have ripped and replaced have been my clients for 2.5 years. I've developed the trust now. And now I have the C-levels in the room, and we talk about reporting from a C-level, from a managerial, from marketing, from service, from sales, and then we build.
Part of it is organizational change, right? And an organization has to have a reason to want to change. One of the benefits, it sounds crazy, but one of the few benefits of this virus is that companies who felt that they could never get their work done remotely have now been proven completely wrong, which will provide benefits for working moms, which will provide benefits for working dads. Working dads who don't have paternity leave will now have an opportunity potentially to at least work from home for a couple of more extra weeks so we can keep these babies alive, because it is very difficult to keep a child alive when they're really small. So it is a cultural shift. What you can do is you can create cheat sheets, and then make sure those cheat sheets are accessible on your intranet or in places where it's easy for people to get. You can use things like Snagit or Snippet or whatever you use to record. Hey, if you want to, mute your participants, this is what you do. Create a small YouTube playlist for your internal company. There's a lot of different things that you can do to give bite-sized help to people who have never worked with this tool before. And I will then lastly say, one of the things you also have to say is just because you're working remotely doesn't mean that you have to micromanage your team.
But I think in the long run, we will be able to maybe more, better manage all of the technical capabilities that digital offers in order to be much more smart about how we work. And I think in the end, the positive impact to that is going to be cost savings in terms of travel for the company as well as for the individual, right? As well as the amount of time actually that we have to spend on the work itself and the quality of work that is the output of it as a result as well.
Companies are having to analyze, how they assess productivity, how you can create culture, ideas of trust, not to mention your technology, infrastructure, and security.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Wherever you are.
Stay safe. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.